Our reports from Zimbabwe that police have arrested Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition Youth Committee Chairperson Pride Mkono and 5 other people. Activists say they're seeing an escalation in the clampdown on human rights defenders and opposition party members. Now, this is all ahead of tomorrow's protest against austerity measures in that country. To tell us more is the coalition's regional coordinator, Blessing Vava, joining us via Skype from Harare this evening. Blessing, a very good evening to you. What can you tell us about what you know about these arrests?
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Basically, what we are seeing in Zimbabwe is an escalation on the trampling of civil liberties of the people of Zimbabwe, basically on the basis of Zimbabweans trying to exercise their democratic rights. As you know, that there is a protest that has been set for tomorrow. And days before that protest, we have heard statements from government threatening to trample upon the people who are going to be demonstrating, and we have also witnessed arrests that have happened, abductions, you know, of the arrest, the abduction and subsequent torture of the Citizen Manifesto coordinator Tetenda Mombearara. And early this morning, the Crisis in Zimbabwe Youth Coalition, the youth chairperson, that is Pride Mkono, was also arrested and facing charges of treason. So basically, we are very much worried that the democratic space in Zimbabwe is continuously shrinking, as from the moment, the day that Mnangagwa took over from Robert Mugabe in November 2017, to date we have more than 20 people we have been charged with treason, and that number is quite alarming, and we are likely going to see more arrests and more abductions as the demonstrations are going on tomorrow.
Blessing, can you say for sure or for certain that these arrests and these apparent abductions are directly linked to the protest plan for tomorrow, maybe attempts to get them to call off the protests tomorrow?
First and foremost, we must understand how this regime has been operating, in that all they are doing, they are trying to instill fear in Zimbabweans so that they don't, exercise their democratic right of protest. It has been systematic, and we have been hearing, the ZANU-PF Youth League, releasing statements, threatening statements against, citizens who want to demonstrate. And this is very much worrying. And also, I should add on to say that there are reports that are coming out of Zimbabwe that the members of the police that are patrolling, the high residential areas in Zimbabwe are in fact military personnel, and some of them are even ZANU-PF youth that have been given police uniforms. This, we have it on record.
So, if you go ahead with this protest tomorrow, you're likely to see the scenes that we saw back in January when similar protests were held, Blessing. And we know that the military has been given full permission to go ahead and do what it needs to do. Just looking at reports coming out of Zimbabwe, looking at what speeches were given just about a month ago, talking about the Constitution, allowing for the military to do that. So are you not afraid then that you are going to see more loss of life tomorrow? And will that actually be worth having this protest tomorrow?
I think first, I think I should clarify that this protest that is happening is not a protest that has been called by the Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition. It is a protest that has been called by the Movement for Democratic Change. And us, as Crisis, we are not part of the protest, but we respect Zimbabweans who are exercising their democratic right.
So you won't be part of the protest, but do you think it's a good idea for them to continue then tomorrow?
Well, I can't say that it's a good or it's a bad idea. But what I can say is that it is a democratic right that those who want to protest should be, allowed to do so without intimidation, without fearing the loss of lives. But we've seen that this regime is very stubborn, and this regime is very violent. This regime is a regime that is in panic. And we can't rule out that already, with what has been happening, during the past few days, is a clear indication of what we're likely going to see. What we've seen in January, the killings that happened in January, the abduction that happened in January, we're more likely to see that happening from tonight and as the protest goes on tomorrow.
I'm very curious, and very quickly for us, Blessing, we are out of time. If you say you're not part of the protest, what would be the possible reason then for the abduction and torture of your members?
Well, as I've indicated earlier, that this regime blames everyone for its own failures, and they have been accusing the Crisis Zimbabwe Coalition of, being part of this demonstration. In January, they accused us of plotting to overthrow the government, and as you know, that our chairperson, Rashid Mahia, is currently facing charges of treason. And a few hours ago, I received a message from a journalist from the Herald. This is a state newspaper, saying that me and other Zimbabweans are in Tanzania receiving, training in banditry. So you can actually see that it's not just targeted to the opposition, but it's targeted to the civic society and mainly the Crisis Zimbabwe Coalition for the work that the coalition has been doing in terms of advocating for a democratic country and advocating for the respect of the rule of law.
Okay, thanks very much for your time there, Blessing Vava. He's the regional coordinator for the crisis in Zimbabwe.